In this video, we will be testing the autofocus of the GH5 and seeing if it's finally good enough after the 2.7 firmware update. What's up everybody, I'm Jake McHugh and this channel is all about making better videos. I do gear reviews and test videos to help you determine what gear you need to make the videos you want to achieve. If that's something that may interest you, consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Last month at the time of this recording, or July of 2020, Panasonic released the firmware update 2.7 for the GH5, and while it wasn't intended for autofocus improvements, I got a comment from Angel Nin's Kitchen, I hope I pronounced that correctly, asking my thoughts about the GH5's autofocus with this update. The firmware update was technically for making the GH5 compatible with the Panasonic tripod grip and for improved stabilization with the 12 to 32mm f3.5 to 5.6 lens, but we are going to see how the autofocus is with this update as well. Since the 2.6 update, the autofocus has been much better than what it was, but I've always still been a little critical of Panasonic's autofocus to the point that I went out and bought the Sony a6400 for creating content like this here. And for this reason, we will be comparing the GH5 to my Sony a6400 at the same time. To go over my autofocus settings for the GH5, I have the AF AE lock set to AF near, quick autofocus set on, continual autofocus set to mode 2, and for the AF custom settings, I have AF speed set to +5 and AF sensitivity set to +3. For the focus mode, I like using one area the best and making the box as small as I can and placing it on the touchscreen about where my face would be in the frame. To get the best results, you will want to use native lenses, as adaptive setups will just be a mess and won't work. And I found that 30 frames per second tends to be a little bit better than 24 frames per second. But if you're like me, I prefer shooting in 24 frames per second, so this is unfortunate. We'll be doing two different tests, with one being here in the studio with this talking head shot like this, and another one outside, but the results shouldn't be too much different, but I wanted to test in a few different situations. That way we have more of a better representation of how these cameras are able to autofocus. Alright, so we have our first test setup here in this talking head position, and I have my GH5 on the right here and my Sony a64 here on the left. I'm going to do a multi-cam, and I'll be talking to both of these cameras at the same time, and I'll be moving my remote in and out of frame to see exactly how the autofocus tracks between the two cameras. I want to make a quick note about the lenses that I'm using on both of these cameras right now. On the GH5, I have the 12 to 35 f2.8 from Panasonic, and I'm shooting at f2.8 wide open. I don't have a lens that is faster than this without it being adaptive, so that wouldn't be a fair test. So we are using this lens. I wanted to make sure that we use a native lens, so this is the one we're using. And then on the Sony a6400, I have the Sigma 16mm f1.4, and I'm shooting at f1.8 for this test here. So to start off, I'm going to test the GH5 first. So as you can see, hopefully it's on focus on me. It looks like it is. I don't want to look at that screen all the time, but I'm going to hold up the remote here. I'm going to have it block my face, make sure that it's hitting the light. We're going to see how long it takes. All right, it looks like it's in focus there. Now let's see how long it takes to get back in focus with me. It looks pretty good. I'm just going to keep talking here. We're going to keep testing this out. The reason I'm testing this here is that if we were to talk about, let's say I'm talking about my teleprompter right now and I want to go over the remote and how it works. It's got these buttons right here. It's compatible with Android and iOS, so that's something worth noting. And I want to be able to hold it up, the product up to the camera, and have you guys see it. So that's why I want to test it in this situation here real quick. So what did you guys think of the GH5 right there? It actually didn't look too bad, which was kind of surprising to me. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and let me know if it was too slow. I think it's like it acquires it kind of slowly, but when it catches it and it makes the transition, it looks pretty smooth. It's not like it doesn't snap and it doesn't look fake. It looks like a focus pull, which is really nice. Alrighty, so now I am testing the a6400 here, and we're just going to see how fast it goes from me to the product I'm holding, this remote here. And this isn't the best test, obviously, but the reason I'm doing this, that is If you have a YouTube channel yourself and you want to talk about a product, you can hold it to the camera and see how fast it's going to acquire focus. And this is really handy in a situation like this. Let's see if it focuses to the back wall real quick. Then to me. But obviously, this isn't the best test right here. We're going to test the tracking abilities of both of these cameras next when we go outside. Alrighty, so we are now in the backyard once again, and I have both of these cameras on a single tripod here, and on my right, your left, I have the Panasonic GH5 with the 12-35 at f2.8, so I'm shooting wide open. And then on my left, your right, I have the Sony a6400, and this is again with the Sigma 16mm, and this time I'm shooting wide open at f1.4. So theoretically, this camera here should have a harder time tracking me due to the fact that it's shooting a lot more wide open compared to the GH5. One thing I would like to note is that this video shouldn't be taken as gold. If we really wanted to know how great the autofocus is on the 2.7 firmware update for the GH5, we would have to conduct hundreds of tests and then take an average of those tests just to get a rough idea of how good it is now. And walking in front of the camera and moving in and out of frame or holding stuff up to the lens really isn't the best representation, but it might give us a rough idea of when we could get away with the autofocus system on the GH5 now and when we should avoid using the autofocus system. So now that we have some tests done and out of the way, let me know what you think of the GH5's autofocus down in the comments below, and if you think it's good enough now with all its updates. While you're at it, let me know what you think of the Sony a6400's performance as well, and if it impressed you at all. Personally for me, I don't think it's quite there yet, and I'm not sure if it ever will be in the GH5 body. The Sony seemed a lot better in my opinion, and this was even at faster apertures. But this doesn't mean that the future cameras from Panasonic will be this way. We have the new S5 on the way, which was designed for content creators in mind with an improved autofocus system, and there should be a new GH6 sometime in the near future, hopefully. So that's going to do it for this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit the bell, that way you get notified when I drop future videos just like this one here. And last but not least, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.